Please keep putting your questions on the channel, please. So let's start the discussion with the panel. I have one question here. The first one is, how do you go into a data product owner role? Please, if you can answer that question.
One of the, I think Andy may have touched on this, at least the way I did it was, you could go through the business analyst role because there are skills that overlap between a product owner and a business analyst, especially around things like, requirement gathering, stakeholder engagement, and understanding of the domain. I think that's what Andy said, and I agree with. And also understanding of the technology as well. You don't have to have the deep technology skills, but you definitely need to understand it. So you need to understand both sides, both the technical and also the business side, and be able to engage both audiences, so to speak.
Okay, thank you so much. With regards to this question goes to Andy. How can I enter into a product owner role without experience? Not having an experience as a product owner, or me switching over from one field, one career to become a product owner. How does that work?
Yeah, we see, as organizations start to implement SAFe, we see a lot of people moving from their existing roles into new roles. But although those new roles may have slightly different job descriptions or different titles, they certainly make use of existing skills that are already there in the organization. So good candidates for the product owner role, again, we talked about the business analyst, but also subject matter experts, maybe individuals who have been working in marketing with close connections to the customers, maybe people who have been working in project or program manager roles. So one part of it is recognizing that there are skills that you may have already that overlap. And then the second thing, of course, is giving those people the knowledge they need to be successful. So when we talk about going through an agile transformation, the worst thing to do is to ask your people to take part in these new roles without giving them the knowledge and the skills they need to do them successfully. So whether it's product owner training, whether it's shadowing an existing product owner, whether it's allowing them the opportunity, we were talking earlier about some of the great online resources that you can access these days. There's great opportunities to grow and learn more than we've ever had before, particularly through accessing these things remotely. And the organizations just need to support them in doing these things successfully. But one thing I would say in summary is a lot of organizations will create communities of practice. So create a community of practice in the company where product owners can come together, who all might be new to the role. They can discuss and share ideas and come up with solutions, and also see whether you can join a wider product owner community of practice outside your company. There's some great networks out there where lots of learning and sharing happens as well.
Okay, so you mean as a program manager, you might have some transferable skills if you want to go into product, being a product manager.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be transferable skills from lots of different roles. Some roles might have that domain knowledge we talked about. Some roles may have an understanding of how to coordinate and manage lots of moving parts. Some roles may have a good understanding of the customer already. So try and understand which parts you have the strength in and which parts you want to grow. And those places where you want to grow, look to develop your skills there. But certainly, I love the idea of building a network of product owners who can support each other. That's always very effective.
But if I have the knowledge and I don't have the experience, because most of the time you're looking for a job and they ask you, they want 10 years experience, and you've not worked in that capacity for that number of years, how do you go about that?
Well, I mean, I think there's two things there. I think sometimes there are expectations which are unrealistic when people are being brought into new roles. But don't forget, what is it easier to teach? Is it easier to teach the activities you need to fulfill to be a product owner, or is it easier to teach the domain knowledge? If you've been working in a bank for 10 or 15 years and you've got deep domain knowledge around financial practices and ways of working, I would suggest that that is the real skill set that you promote. The product owner skills and how you bring those to bear may be easier to learn than the domain knowledge. So I think new product owners should emphasize the deep domain knowledge they had, and that may help them to get a foot in the door as they start to develop some of the additional skills around the actual product owner practices. But I also realize, Regina, that it is difficult when people start off.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Typically, the best situation is where the organization that you're currently working at is
Hmm.
starting to explore agile ways of working, and
Hmm.
you can move into those roles in a safe environment,
Hmm.
learning as you go.
Good. All right. Thank you. I think there was a question on the in the chat which you've already answered, but let me just read it out. It says, with the separation of product manager and product owner roles, how do we avoid the disadvantage of ansof? And how can the product owner effectively act as customer representative when he or she has not been part of the discovery with the client?
Yeah, that was a great question from Henrik. And I think two things. So I think, you know, if there was an extra slide I would like to put in my presentation, it might look a little bit like we've got all of our products and solutions. We've got our products that we're currently developing. We've got the ones that are coming next. And then we've got the Horizon 3 things that are perhaps a year or two down the road. The product owner who's helping to execute and deliver the Horizon 1 opportunities is absolutely getting feedback from the customer. They're building it, they're delivering early opportunities for feedback. They're inviting customers to the system demos. They've maybe got a community of customers that they can show what it is that they're developing and the progress they're making. What the product owners will struggle to do because of their time and their constraints is also keep an eye on the Horizon 2 and the Horizon 3 opportunities. So that's really where the product manager is fitting in. What is coming next? What is the roadmap going to look like in 6 and 9 and 12 months? Where are the future opportunities going to come from? So I certainly didn't mean to give the impression that product owners can never have a relationship with the customer, but they're more focused on feedback on the actual solution being built rather than things that we may be developing or exploring for future opportunities in 2 or 3 years' time. The other thing that Henrik mentioned was the handoffs. You're absolutely right, Henrik. To avoid the handoffs or to minimize them at least, and this is how we do it at Scaled Agile, we try and bring the product owners and product managers, and my role at Scaled Agile is the product manager for the framework team. So we try and bring the group together when we're making some of these key decisions. So when we're getting to the point that we're elaborating the features, or we're prioritizing the program backlog, or we're defining the roadmap, if we can bring the product owners into that discussion, then we're working as an effective team rather than one group doing the work and handing it off to the other group. So I think opportunities for collaboration like that can really help.
Good. Thank you, Andy. And Henrik also asked a question. He said, you talked about how the product owner should ensure that details are in place when the team takes a future from the product manager. Product manager. Isn't that a very waterfall way of thinking?
Yeah, so another good question from Henrik. So, one thing I talked about is how important it is for the product owner to be asking those critical questions of the product manager to make sure they understand, and therefore the team will understand the features that are being asked of them. At that point, we're not adding all the detail, we're not creating the stories. All I simply meant was that we're clarifying the acceptance criteria and what are the benefit hypotheses for those features. So Henrik's right. If we were breaking it down into all the detail, it would be too much upfront work. But this was more just a higher level clarification of what is the benefit and the acceptance criteria before we start socializing the features with the teams.
Thank you, Andy. This question goes to William. Does the product owner require strategic knowledge to be competent in their role?
Yes, I think Andy mentioned it, and she also talked about it. You need to have a good understanding of what the data strategy is, and which is important when delivering a product. But as an organization, we are led by our strategy. Without a clear understanding of the strategy, we won't identify which particular products to work on. And when we have a good understanding of the strategy, it builds into the portfolio what are our critical success factors, what are our objectives, what will make us stay in a blue ocean over a red ocean. All organizations want to be there to win. And if you don't have a good understanding of where you are going, then you wouldn't be able to execute your strategy with your products. So, as a product owner, you need a fair understanding of strategy as you uh, improve and grow on your role. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, I reckon this will go to Andy because you talk about you talked about the agile framework and the agile release train. Somebody wants to know, Francisco, how do I combine old legacy software with modern ones in terms of agile? I mean, in my experience, we cannot plan efficiently our activities due to waterfall dependency. So how do you now sort of combine this? You have the old legacy system and you now have the new software. How do you put this in place?
Yeah, I mean, I think Francisco has described the problem perfectly, and it's not an easy problem to solve. If we do have dependencies on legacy systems that have much longer lead times, maybe they're being supported by suppliers that we don't have direct control over, then what we'll do in our PI planning is effectively take some key milestones of when we can make changes to those systems and do our best to plan around them. But when we think about Agile at scale, of course, there's a people part of it and there's a process part, but there's also a huge technology part as well. And it's only really when we effectively tackle some of these legacy systems, think about how we might decompose them, maybe break them down into services that the teams can access, provide the same functionality in different ways, that we're really going to be effective in delivering value quicker. A lot of organizations have this challenge that there's a big central monolithic system that's very hard to change or make any increments to, and that becomes the bottleneck in the process. So there's no easy answer for Francisco. What I would say though is if we're doing an agile implementation at scale, we need to consider the technical and architectural questions alongside the process and people questions, because often they're the harder things to solve. And if we can get those right, the benefits can be vast.
Thank you, Andy. I think this next question from Asa might be for you, Andy, or for William. They want to know, how can we provide time delivery if resources are constrained? You talk about collaboration and they have constrained time. How do we now provide these resources?
Go ahead, William, if you'd like.
Uh, well, for all organizations, we are limited by time, cost, and the schedule to deliver. And if we are limited by resources, prioritization becomes the key thing.
Mm.
So I talked about prioritization as one of the components of strategy execution. If you can prioritize your delivery process, prioritize your minimum viable products, then you can use the limited resources. And if you deliver value for an organization, whether for the internal staff or for the external staff, that value can translate into funds. Then you can start employing more people. But if you fail to deliver value with your limited staff members, and you're not delivering the MVP, then you will continue to have that limited resources. So prioritization, delivering value, and making sure that that value translates into funds, then you could recruit more people. Andy, have you got something to add?
I agree with everything you say. I mean, actually, having a constraint is not necessarily a bad thing in terms of the conversations it will drive, because if you are constrained in terms of capacity, it'll force you to have those difficult conversations around what is the most important thing to do now. And the danger when we have plentiful capacity is we start thinking about keeping the teams busy and we find work for them to do. So if we're limited, as William said, we're going to prioritize ruthlessly. We're going to work out what are the valuable things to do now. And one of the most difficult parts of a product manager or product owner job is actually deciding what are the things we're not going to do. And even what are the things that we've maybe started that are turning out not to be valuable that we're going to stop. So we've got to be really tough on that. One other thing to say though is it also takes a lot of effort to sustain a product. So when you've released a product into the market, the work doesn't stop there. In fact, it may be 2 times as much effort to sustain it over the next 5 or 10 years or whatever its life cycle is. So we need to also plan for how we're going to maintain existing products in terms of capacity, as well as just developing new products. And that also takes a lot of time away from the teams.
Thank you, Andy. Earlier on, when you started this, conversation. You spoke about the difference between the product manager and also the product owner. The product manager being focusing on the strategy, and the product owner focusing on the tactics and the execution. David wants to know what's the difference between a product owner and a product manager, and must a product owner also be an SME, a subject matter
Yeah, I
expert?
mean, you summarized it really well there, Regina. So, we have this longer term strategy. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3 years. There's a direction of travel that the company is taking. Someone needs to own and maintain that and be responsible for the return on investment of the solutions we deliver. That's how we see the product manager. The product owner is, of course, helping us to deliver the valuable solutions today. They can be combined if the solutions are small enough, but at scale, it can be beneficial creating a team with those two separate roles. And then this SME question, the subject matter expert, all the solutions we're developing these days have a technology aspect to them that is inevitable. And when we start breaking down our technical solution, there are going to be parts of those solutions that are very complex and require some domain knowledge or expertise. So maybe if you've got 10 or 12 agile release trains, there might be a couple of those teams, there might be a couple of those agile teams who are building very complex parts of the system where it would be useful having a product owner who had some knowledge and subject matter expertise around that particular domain. There may be other teams that actually are building things where the SME and deep domain knowledge isn't quite so required. So I think you have to take each case on its merits, but just keep in mind when you get down to that level of detail, there are some very technical activities taking place there that may benefit from someone who has some domain expertise.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andy. Um, this question goes to William. How do I attend a product owner or a product manager course? What does that entail?
Thank you, Gina. We are a bronze partner, and we are proud to be a bronze partner of Skilled Agile. We thank Andy for joining us for today's session. So, when you go onto our website, leanicontechnology.co.uk, we've got courses and we've got teams who are available to have a chat with you and to help you select the right course. We are mindful, it's not one size fits all. I had someone coming in and said, I want to take a course. I think I want to do the Scrum Master course. Upon having conversations with them, we realized they were much suited for the product owner course. Or someone coming in for the safer teams, and we realized they were much suited for um, a Scrum Master course. So we try to make sure that we provide your needs and we listen to our customers.
Good. So, what will it cost me if I want to do one of those courses then?
We've got prices on our website, and just like a product, our prices vary. I think with data that we get from the website, that as Chi talked about, once we analyze the data, draw some insights from the data, our prices also we do have discounts on our prices based on the seasons. So come onto the website. All the costs are on the website, and if I give you a quote today, you might go on the website and the price is much more favorable. So have a look at the website and definitely uh, talk to our teams and we would engage with you.
Thank you. So, if, for example, probably I work with I'm an healthcare professional, and I want to move from my field into product manager role, how long would that take me? Would there be a system in place to sort of mentor me and lead me through that roadmap to achieve my goals?
Uh, yes, we do have a cohort course that we do run, and the cohort course, which we also look at data that Chi talked about. We emphasize much on data, and Chi said data is the new oil. So understanding that um, data bit is quite important. So we start off with requirements engineering. Andy mentioned requirements engineering. Then we talked. We have the product owner course, and then we have a data with SQL. These three combinations with a few interview practice sessions would get you ready to have a conversation. And whether you are in house or you are looking for a new role, we think that the product owner role has perfect harmony if you have a good understanding of what strategy, what data is, get an understanding of what the product owner does. So we do the product owner, product manager course. And then finally, the product owner elicits requirements. And that's a key tool for the business analyst. So we run the requirements engineering session to embed your understanding on how to elicit requirements using workshops, observations, interviews, research, document analysis. And that gives you that firm foundation to go into an interview and have that fruitful conversation. And I know Andy will add to the conversation. If you're a product owner or manager and you can't elicit requirements, what could that lead to, Andy or Chi?
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly. I think the next question is for Chi anyway. But yeah, it's an important skill. You're absolutely right, because the clarity of an understanding of what we're building, we're trying to build this connection, right? All the way from the strategy through the vision, the roadmaps, the features, the stories, all the way through to execution. And to get that good connection, we need clarity at every single step. And one of the most important things, and the reason we do events like PI planning, is to create alignment around the organization. So all of these things connect and support each other. And if you've got the good skills at describing the requirements, it makes sure we're maximizing the value. There's good alignment and understanding, and we're all moving in the same direction. Absolutely, William. Agree completely.
Thank you, Andy. Just a question here for Chi. You've talked about data as a product. Someone wants to know how Francisco wants to know how to demonstrate in a strategic and paratic way to the business the value of a future. How much time should take a tracking to prove that a specific future is valuable?
Hello, can you hear me, Regina?
Yes, I can hear now.
Okay. All right. So I think what the person is, because I'm reading the question as well, they're saying to demonstrate in a
Yes,
strategic and
yes.
practical way. I think he's trying to say to the business the value of the
Mm-hmm.
feature, how much time should is taking
Takes
tracking
in tracking.
approve. I'm not too sure what the person was trying to ask there. But I'll just answer what I think I understand by the question.
Okay.
And it really is down to the, what you release in terms of functionality. So because a lot of these discussions are happening, and you're carrying the customer along, I think that in itself is a practical way of kind of demonstrating it to them. Obviously, these stakeholders or customers are busy with their work, so you can't be pulling them into every meeting. So you have to have, when you've reached a point in terms of, you know something tangible that you have developed or delivered, then you have a session with them, and then you go through it. And then in terms of the timing, I think that's just down to what it's down to deadlines at the end of the day. When you speak to your customer or your stakeholder and they're saying they need this, we all know time is money. So the sooner the better. One thing about stakeholders is that they're always going to say to you that, it's urgent and they need it yesterday. But you need to really get to the bottom of it and see when it really is that they need it for, and then work to that time. But I always say that you want to under promise and over deliver. So if they're saying to you that they need it in, say for instance, they need this functionality, you know, in a week's time, you want to negotiate for more than a week, and then try to deliver in under a week. And that way you keep the customer happy.
Thank you, Sid. That's awesome. Someone wants to know, some company require to some companies requiring to employ a product owner may prefer to employ someone with a BA experience so as to fill in the gap when needed. Does your training or course also cover BA and product owner, or what will you advise in this situation? That will be for William, and I know we cover BA and product owner courses.
Yep, the requirements engineering part of it covers deeply the BA skills. Uh, if you're on a product owner course, it's not worth understand. It's worth understand. I shouldn't say it's not. It's worth understanding what the business analyst does, because in the business analyst course we start from strategy, understand the key role of the business analyst, talk about requirements, refine the requirements. But focusing on the requirements course, we make sure that you get a good understanding of the skill sets required to elicit, analyze, document, and manage your requirements as a product owner. Most product owners who get appointed as from subject matter as who get appointed into PO roles, having come as subject matter experts or skilled people within certain areas, over time realize that the role as a product owner is quite daunting if you don't have the right skill set. So requirements engineering courses I've recommended to many organizations, and they've gotten their product owners on the requirements engineering course, and that has saved the teams, because if a requirement is not clear, the teams can't deliver value. So let's keep that in mind. As a product owner, when you join our course, we make sure that you get that clarity in requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. Is there anyone with any other question? I'm just looking through the chat, boss, and it seems that every questions have been answered.
Mm.
Hmm, okay, I think I think most questions have been answered. Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, well, I've just checked through. We don't have any pending question. Or if there any, is there anybody that have any questions for the panelists? Anybody that
I
has
think a
question
few
for them?
questions have come in the chat, Regina. I'm looking at it
Let me.
now.
Okay, I saw 4 new questions now. Let me just see. Um. Okay. Somebody just said, "How easy is it to transition?" Probably, I want to believe from one career pathway to another one. How easy it is to transition?
Yeah, I think he meant BA to
Oh,
product owner.
yeah.
If I to answer that, I would say first you need a clear roadmap, and the roadmap from where you are to where you want
For
to
the
be
product
will
owner, yeah.
determine how persistent you want to be, and then how willing you want to invest your time. So, these two key things, a roadmap, persistence, would help you get on that journey. I could say 3 months, I could say 4 months, I could say 6 months. But if you lack a roadmap and persistence, you would get off track and you wouldn't pursue it. Because I've had many people ask me, William, I want to go on the product owner course. I want to be a product owner. Applying for jobs as a product owner is not the easiest task. It requires commitment, persistence, and perseverance. So I'm not going to say it's easy, but the remuneration is something that you go to the bank laughing. Yeah.
Can I add to what you're saying, William? Because I happen to have done a similar transition from business intelligence to product owner. There were a lot of transferable skills, but I think on the foundation, because I was doing business intelligence and it's data, and the product owner role is a data product owner, so you can see there's something in common there. Also, in addition, there are transferable skills like Andy mentioned and yourself, William mentioned. So things like requirement gathering, stakeholder engagement, things like that. So if one is to do like a product owner course and add that to all of those existing skills, then you put yourself in good stead to get a product owner role. Now, I'm not saying, like William has highlighted, it's not going to be easy. A lot of people feel that, you know, they're proud of the work they've done, and and they should be. However, that might not be what the hiring manager is looking for, at that point in time. So you really need to be patient. You really need to seek out the right role. You might not get that big salary, off the bat.
Mm.
However, if you keep going, you should be able, someone will give you a chance. I believe so.
So when you made mention of that big salary, that comes to mind. What's the minimum, um, like say minimum wages for product manager or product owner? Minimum, maybe daily rate or annual rates. Do you
Mm.
have any clue, or it
Well,
doesn't matter?
I would say it depends on
Experience or
sectors and experience, because in the banking sector
mm,
they pay very high, in some other sectors they pay very low.
mm,
But if you get that knowledge, skill sets, and then with a product owner training, product owner product management training, I recommend the skilled agile framework. I've looked at all the other um, agile courses, and I'm a big I wouldn't say I'm biased, but I've seen the skilled agile framework much more holistic, and it helps you understand all the key things you need to know as a product owner, product manager, when you join a team. So with this background knowledge and skill set, you are able to move into organizations, start as a junior product owner, and then move up. The product owner role can go into an executive role when you take a long-term roadmap view of your career. So my key thing for saying roadmap is the product owner role is a great role, but what next is the big question. So constantly keep planning on what next.
Can I add to what you're saying, William, please? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
hello?
Yeah. So in addition to what William said, because I happen to also kind of have a look at these things. And so like William said, it depends, right? It depends on how senior you are, how junior you're entering the market, right? So if you have, you could be in a sector and you could be on 25, 30K, even 35K. And you could be in another sector and you have all this experience and you could be on, 100K plus. It just depends. But I think what is more important is knowing your entry point. You might be able to enter at a point where it's 5 years experience, and what you need to bridge the gap between what you know and what you don't know is not too much. However, you don't want to enter and you just can't cope. You're out of your depth.
Mm.
So that's the main thing, is just understanding where the entry point. I would say personally, in my experience, I would say don't even focus on the salary. Just focus on getting the role first, and skilling up, bridging that gap, that skills gap. And then once that has been done, maybe it take a year, maybe a couple years, and then you can then now make another move.
So do
What
you
do you say
think?
to that, William? Yeah.
All right, thank you. Do you think there is
Yep.
a lot of job role there for product owner and product manager?
Yes, I think so.
Andy, what do you think, Andy?
Well, one thing I was thinking as you guys were talking is we've been getting these questions about people moving into these new roles, but there's really two scenarios that I observe. One is where they voluntarily move into the roles, which normally ends in a very positive situation. But of course, we also observe sometimes that people are asked to move into roles that they don't necessarily choose or willingly do themselves. So, one thing I've seen that I was just going to share with everyone, we did a talk about a year ago at the Safe Summit about exactly this topic, moving from existing roles to new roles. And one of the things that one of our customers did that was very interesting is they opened up the roles inside their organization and they allowed people from any part of the organization to put themselves forward for it. So rather than saying all BAs become product owners or all SMEs become product owners or all program managers become product managers, they actually advertised the roles internally and let people who thought they'd have a good match to the skills put themselves forward. And that way they found candidates who were driven to succeed in the role rather than allocating people to the roles. So I think there's a big difference there as well as to whether it's a choice or whether it's something that is perhaps enforced on people. And of course, if it's a choice and you're passionate about it, it's more likely it'll be successful. So rather than trying to find a one-to-one match, if you're trying to get a group of new product owners, maybe some of them come from business analysts, but maybe some of them come from other places as well. So it's not always the same one-to-one match for every single person filling the role. So just wanted to share that, William, because that was an interesting observation from one customer.
Thank you so much. Gina?
So somebody just asked, will the presentation be available to attendees?
Yes, the presentation will be available to all attendees, and I'll have a chat with the speakers for them to look at their slides. And if they want to make the slides available, we will send them as an email to everyone who's attended.
Thank you so much. Is there any question? I can see any other question. If there is no other question, then we're coming to the close of this wonderful session. And I want to say thank you all for joining this session. It's been a pleasure to host you all on this session. It's been wonderful having Andy, she, and William talk to us about product owner and product manager. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gina.
Thanks for having us.